Up again. All right, guys, welcome back into another NBA DFS video. We got a small 4-game slate on this Thursday. Got Nick here with us today. Kind of an easy slate. What are your kind of initial thoughts for this one?
Yeah, I mean, 4 games, not a ton of news. I don't know if I'm popping up on the video there. I see myself as no guest, but that could just be on my end. But yeah, I mean, initial thoughts are Embiid looks like the pay up if you can afford him, but he's super low owned because there's not a ton of value. So I think if we can get to him, it's great, but it's going to be easier said than done, I think. And I think that's reflected in ownership. So unless we get some news we're not expecting, which could certainly happen with some of these teams on back-to-backs, I think it's going to be a balanced night in terms of builds for the most part, but the field's probably going to be with that. So if you can get different, go for it. But yeah, it's going to be tough to squeeze value out of the slate.
I agree. And it's not like yesterday's slate where there was the kind of easier value, I would say. And I would say the model actually kind of nailed a bunch of plays. Like personally, to me, I wasn't on sharp at all. And then the model was like, it loved it. So I'm like, all right, we just got to play him, which ended up working out. That really changed the difference in my night, honestly.
Yeah, I had a pretty good night, but Luka held me back, of all people. Had some really good lineups where he wasn't even close to value, so that really hurt. And then, I don't know. Paul George coming on late was nice. Bagley, I got enough out of him, but could use a little more. But shouts out to Chuck for really sticking his feet in the ground on the TJ McConnell stand. And
hey, now that was me too. That's
you too, man. Yeah, both you guys. I just saw him in the Discord. That's why. But yeah, I know you guys were both on that, and a lot of the industry wasn't. And now today, a lot of the industry is coping and saying, "Oh, that's not something that's going to happen in most cases." But I mean, yeah. 4K, like he got there so easily. Hawkins was an awesome play too, even though he shot terribly.
My night was weird because like my Hawkins, I did 2 lineups. The one that I had Luka and had Hawkins in it, and so the one that was more fair and balanced did not have him in it, and I was kind of kicking myself for it. And then I went with Isaiah Stewart instead of John Collins, and that a small difference, maybe a unit difference there, nothing too crazy, but all in all, not a bad night. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into tonight's slate. So we'll break down the news here. So we will start out kind of, we were mentioning like Brandon Ingram. He is someone that could be in, most likely going to be in. And if he is in, like we're just looking at CJ McCollum and him probably because right now Zion is ruled out. So Ingram and CJ McCollum are seemingly very good values. And then also Jordan Hawkins, maybe not as good of a play as he was yesterday, but on a 4-game slate, probably someone that we're looking at. What are your kind of thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I mean, he is drawing a lot of ownership, but the price hasn't moved, and he's shown that even when he's not making his shots, he's going to take a ton of them. He is involved on defense, getting stocks and things like that. So on a slate where we're really, really lacking value, I think he's going to make some sense regardless. And then, like you said, I mean, we're going to see a nice boost for CJ with Zion out, a nice boost for Ingram as well. I want to say Joval in that same breath. The minutes have been inconsistent with him. The fantasy point per minute rate's been outstanding, so it's like, yeah, he looks good. I'm pretty sure the model's going to like him again. But yeah, you got to kind of maybe pump the brakes a little bit just because the minutes have been inconsistent. But before I hand it back over, I just got to ask, am I showing up on the screen for you? Because On mine it says no guest.
Yeah, no, you guys are good chat. Can you just make sure that Nick is showing on your end too? I'm looking. So I have two screens. I have the live stream platform that we're on streaming through, and then I have the YouTube live stream. He's showing up on both ends for us.
Okay.
For some reason, the guest side of it.
I don't need to see myself. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So I think we're good, but chat, can you just confirm that?
Thanks, guys.
But yeah, so moving on into like another injury situation, should we just go to Toronto? Nothing too much there, but I think it's noteworthy enough. So with Toronto, we know that Precious is out, Coloco's out, and Otto Porter. We're not too worried about that, but I think we can see Jakob Poeltl continue to like get the 28, maybe even 30 minutes that he has been getting, and he could be a decent value on the slate. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, and I mean it's tricky here. I like him better with Precious out because his minutes are more secure, but at the same time it's Joel Embiid, so there is the risk of foul trouble. But he is cheap; he should be on the floor. Yeah, at his price, I think point per dollar, he is probably one of the better centers on the slate. It's just obviously in that matchup there is some risk. He had an amazing first half yesterday against Giannis, and for whatever reason, I mean that game did get out of hand. But yeah, he didn't do as much in the second half. But I mean, I like him here, and I'm looking at the ownership right now, sub 20% on both sites. It's certainly reasonable. And yeah, I mean, they don't have much depth in that front court with Precious out. I know Chris Boucher's on the roster, but that's never someone I'm too excited by.
No.
But yeah, it looks like he's even drawing a little bit of ownership. I guess for that to work out, you probably need Podol foul trouble or a blowout. Probably not going to play that game that way. I do like Jakob Podol. I'll definitely get to some shares here, but I would be lying if I said the matchup is at least a little bit concerning.
Yeah. And so like yesterday was the first time I would say in which a matchup kind of hurt me. I was on Ben Simmons. And he got a foul trouble. So it's just kind of unfortunate there.
He was in the locker room too. I was, I don't know. The Nets won that game, so I was pumped, but yeah, Simmons that was his worst game statistically easily this season. Yeah, of all guys, Armani Brooks going on for like 20 points was not what I expected in the
Yep. And then guys as well, just in the chat, make sure if you guys have any questions, make sure to begin those in there as well. We haven't had any confirmation just yet that you're on the screen.
Can you guys see me or not? Does it say no guest in a square?
Yes, please.
Yeah, yes or no? Am I visible?
But yeah, we'll switch up again to Detroit here. So we know that Jalen Duren currently questionable. The model currently has him in there as active. If that occurs, Ghost Nick is present. That does that mean he's on the screen or not on the screen?
Ooh. Halloween was 2 days ago.
All right, we can see Nick. All right.
Okay, good. But yeah, getting back to basketball, Jalen Duren, I mean, when he's in this season, he's been outstanding. It's an ankle injury. He's listed as questionable. I think they've been cautious with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a little bit tough to gauge. I lean that he's going to be in. The issue is there is an hour break between when the slate locks and that game locks. So you're just going to want to make sure you have some flexibility. Obviously, don't just totally load up on that first game if you are going to Stewart, Bagley, and or Durant. But I think if Durant's in, he is solid for sure. I'm guessing he wants to play here. It's just like, I don't know. This is all hypothetical. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what his ankle looks like, but it's a young team. There's no pressure to force these guys out every night. I think they're being cautious, but at the same time, I think he should be good to go. It's just a matter of if.
And so, like on DraftKings, he's not. I mean, he's pulling some ownership at 17%. On FanDuel, he's only 6%. So, kind of a GPP play there. Other than that, Isaiah Stewart's pretty cheap on FanDuel, so he's pulling ownership. I would say everyone else is probably correctly priced, and I believe the model was pretty much thinking that as well. It is. So, not too much there. They're all kind of thin. So the next kind of injury-worthy stuff is just Phoenix, and then we'll just get into the guard plays. So looking at the Phoenix Suns, we do know that Bradley Beal is still out. Devin Booker, however, is currently a game-time decision. First of all, do you have a take on whether he's going to play or not? I know he's in the model, so are we just kind of that's what we're rolling with?
Yeah, I'm leaning yes, and I think someone posted it in our Discord. Shams actually reported that he was expected to be back today. This was a report that I think came out yesterday. It sounds like he was at shoot-around. He should be good to go here. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know that they necessarily need him against the Spurs, but coming off that last game, I think they really want to get this one back. So I think he will be on the floor.
Mhm.
All signs seem to be pointing in that direction. We're looking at a 9-point spread too, which kind of tells me I don't know. I think he's in. Um, but yeah, again, it's not like I can say it with full confidence.
Yeah,
This being
yeah.
the NBA, yeah.
What's interesting is that the model is still showing Josh Okogie and then also Eric Gordon as still pretty good values on the slate. Just price point wise, it's a 4-game slate. It does make sense, but they're not pulling that much ownership. You see yourself getting to them at all?
Yeah, I mean Okogie just because he feels small forward, which is a tough position to fill, and he is sub 5K. I mentioned before, if all these guys we're talking about end up ruled in, we're really going to be lacking value on the slate. And he's a guy who's going to get the minutes with Beal out, even if Booker's on the floor. I think we did see that in the first game of the season. He had a really awesome game where he went off. Eric Gordon, that would probably push him to the second unit, which is fine. This game would probably have to be competitive for him to hit value, so I'm a little bit less interested in him. I think the price came way up on Grayson Allen after a huge game. So really, of that group, it is a Kobe for me.
Okay, gotcha. And then I'm trying to answer Israel's question. It didn't really make sense the first thing they said. So can you just rephrase that in the chat? I think it's about Joel Embiid. But I'm reading off his second question. Low price players that can go for 40. That's very rare. I don't think we really had that slate tonight where there's going to be an extremely low price that's going to go for 40. Like there's no TJ McConnell.
Yeah, what do we consider low? I mean, I guess Jordan Clarkson's 5,400. He's a guy who I'd maybe put in that category. John
Mhm.
Collins is only 56. OG and Anunoby in lineups where you're not playing Scotty Barnes makes some sense. Those are three that are kind of around 5K. I don't know if you
Yeah.
consider them cheap, but to me,
I
that's a
consider like 4K, honestly. So
yeah, the 4K guys that can get to 40. I mean, I'm going down here. Hawkins, if maybe he
yeah,
makes a few of those shots, but again,
yeah,
we're speculating. This isn't a likelihood at all.
no.
And then if Duren is out, I guess Marvin Bagley, you'd have to play better than he did yesterday, though.
Yeah, and then would Wiseman get into foul trouble again? I guess I don't know. That was
Yeah, yeah. I didn't play any Wiseman yesterday. I'm curious what his rotation would have looked like without foul trouble, though. He only played 6 minutes, so I don't know. I don't know what to expect there.
Mhm. So we're going to go ahead and get into the guards value here on this slate. There was a question about Kelly Oubre. Why is he pulling in as good value? We'll get into that more so once we get into the forwards. So switching up into the guards here, the players that are showing in as the best value, Jordan Clarkson, as someone that you mentioned. CJ McCollum is going to be someone that we need to go in on, it seems like. Then we got Horton Tucker, and then we flip it around just by the best plays by the OF index. Booker, Ingram, CJ McCollum, Maxey, Cade Cunningham, Scotty Barnes. It seems like to me, I want to be loading up on probably McCollum, Ingram, Maxey, and maybe even Scotty Barnes. Is there any other plays here that you would probably be looking at?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Maxey at his ownership where it's at currently. I mean, in lineups, I don't have Embiid. I'd love to get to him at 8,400. CJ is probably my favorite. I know Ingram fills that small forward position. Guard's definitely a little bit deeper, but we have seen more consistent performances out of McCollum, and Ingram is a streaky player. I do like him here, but him being like the chalkiest play on the entire slate of the two, I would lean CJ if that is a decision you find yourself making. But yeah, I mean, Clarkson on DK at 5,400 feels pretty unavoidable. Markel Fultz on both sides, sub 6K. He's been solid. The one I don't love is Horton Tucker. I know he has upside, but super inconsistent compared to some of these other guys we're talking about. A lot of guards with assist potential and upside. Horton Tucker really doesn't have that. So yeah, it's a lot of faults for me. He's chalky though. Really like Maxey at his ownership, and CJ is probably my favorite piece of chalk when we're talking about guards.
Yeah. Yeah. So with Horton Tucker, just to echo that, like to me, it's tough to get to him because he's only had 2 games where he's had over 10 shot attempts. And sure, in those 2 games, he did kind of 6X there.
Yeah.
It's just tough to bank on that. And I know the last game, Utah blew out Memphis, so it's really tough to gauge that. But
Yeah,
it,
I don't mean to cut you off. I got one more, but
go ahead.
really like Jalen Suggs. I just like what he's
Yeah.
been doing this year. Super aggressive, getting more minutes than I think most people expected behind Cole Anthony and Fultz. He's actually playing more, I think, than Cole Anthony right now. But yeah, I like Suggs, and he's sub 20% on both sides. He's cheap, relatively speaking, to the rest of the slate. So really, really like Jalen Suggs. That's one GP play I expect to be well over the field on.
Yeah, and if we just look at the data here, guys, let's like the value is pretty much exactly the same here. Maybe not as good of an OF index, but pricing wise, Suggs to me seems like a better play, especially at half the ownership on both sides. DraftKings, you can play him at shooting guard as well. That does open up a lot. Really, the forgotten guy here has been Cole Anthony. Like Suggs has been the one getting minutes. So I think that's a great call.
With you.
And then just one, I mean, I think we do need to mention Jordan Hawkins just in general.
Pull up that shot log. Yeah.
Can he do it again? I mean, he's 4.6 now. He did get 37 and 35 minutes the last two games. Is shooting the basketball a lot, 19 and 13 shot attempts. Kind of what are your thoughts on him? Like, we're not expecting.
I mean, Zion's out. That's 30 plus minutes that we're getting back in the rotation. So even if Ingram's in, I think he's probably going to be heavily involved. And I mean, he's been hitting value even though he's shooting terribly. Coming out of the draft, he was one of the better shooters in the draft, at least statistically. So I think we're going to see positive regression with him as far as the shots falling. So even if he loses, say, 5 to 8 minutes here, Ingram does tend to play more than Zion. But yeah, I like him, and I think the Pels like him, and I think they want him on the floor. It's going to cut into some of the other guys, but guys like Alvarado, Marshall, Murphy, regular rotational pieces who we really haven't even thought about this season, they're all still out. So I think he's going to continue to see extended run. I'd rather play him than someone like Dyson, who's cheaper but not nearly as aggressive, especially shooting the ball. Dyson Daniels, that is.
And then I want to just ask about it. So I personally do not like Killian Hayes, but the data likes him a little bit better, and he is significantly lower owned than someone like Jordan Hawkins. They're the same price. Do we get there at all? I mean, I think it depends on Burks. I need to check that. Is Burks out?
Yeah, Burks was out, and I think it depends on how many lineups you're playing. But I think the issue with Hayes is he was kind of the backup point guard directly to Cunningham last season, and it seems like this year they're getting more minutes on the floor together, which completely tanks his usage. So not really seeing any usage even when he's getting minutes. So yeah, I'm happy to shy away. But if he's super low owned and you're playing a ton of lineups, he's sub 10% on both sides. So I think just from a game theory angle, it makes some sense. But as far as the player goes, as far as like how I actually feel about Killian Hayes right now, tough to get excited about him with no usage, even if Burks is out.
Yeah, and then just to wrap up I guess I want to mention Dennis Schroeder. Are you getting into him at all because he's kind of cheap as well? Just went off against Milwaukee, had a good game against Philly last time out as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you came into the season and said we'd be paying over $6K for Schroeder consistently, I don't think I'd be excited about it. But he's looked really good with this team. I mean, he's filling it nicely for Fred VanVleet. Really playing a true point guard role, which works here. And yeah, I mean, reasonably owned on both sides. A little bit more expensive than the Clarksons, the Fultzes, the Suggses of the world. But at the same time, I think you're seeing that in the ownership. So I will get some Schroeder. And I feel pretty good about his floor, which is more than I can say for some of the more scoring-dependent guards.
Yeah. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on into the forwards here. Just let me pull it up here. So small forward, power forward here. We have Kevin Durant at 10.8. If Booker plays, are we getting to Kevin Durant at all?
Not really. I mean, I'm like you, I think, in that we both play more like single entry, just a handful of lineups. Like if I was playing 150, anytime you're getting like a stud at low ownership, it makes sense. But for me, who's playing like, I think 10, 15 lineups tonight, I might have him in one or two, but he's not someone who's first in for me at all. Not a priority, because if you use all that salary for him, you're still squeezing value out of these guys, and I'd much rather go to someone like Embiid or fit a Maxey with McCollum, something like that. He's just really not a priority here, but obviously if Booker's out, that changes quickly.
And then, so to answer the question about Kelly Oubre being a good value, let's kind of break that down. So the data is really liking him as a good value. On DraftKings, you can play him at small forward, power forward. On FanDuel, you can play him at small forward, shooting guard. Both slates, he's pulling about 14% ownership. He is gaining about 32 minutes. Now, Kelly Oubre is definitely an interesting play. He's very much shot dependent. I would say he's more of a GPP play, but is he projected to start again for them tonight with... Right?
Yeah, I think he will start. It sounds like Batum isn't finished moving to Philly yet. He's who maybe slides into that starting lineup once he is there. But for now, yeah, it does look like it's going to be Oubre playing the wing. And yeah, you mentioned he's scoring dependent, and I agree with you. On FanDuel, though, you do get extra points for steals. He has 6 steals through 3 starts this season, averaging 2 a game. I don't think that's going to hold, but that certainly helps his upside. And where you're getting him much lower owned than a lot of the other guys we have in this range, I think he makes sense. But yeah, he's a streaky player. I mean, when he gets hot, he has massive upside. He's a guy with 40 fantasy point upside. But at the same time, I mean, we see single digit floors out of him. So totally with you, GPP play, but definitely one I want to mix in.
Yeah, and just looking at that game that they had last night against Portland, he only played 26 minutes, 21 DraftKings points at least. You know, a pretty solid game, but once again, 3 for 10. He got 2 steals and a block. Can we really rely on that night to night? I mean, maybe 1 steal, but
no.
Yeah. And then just looking at the other kind of forward plays that we have, my boy John Collins is finally starting to get some ownership, 29% owned. It makes me sad, honestly, there. We got Thompson pulling in 9 and 7% ownership for Detroit. If we get news that Duran's out, he'd be someone that we see go up there. What are your thoughts on Keldon Johnson at 6.5? Because he is someone that I thought would have a really good season. We didn't see that really up until the last game. Is he worth looking at tonight, or kind of what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, he really won that game for the Spurs the last time they played the Suns. At the price, I like him. But again, the issue you run into with a lot of these Spurs is, I don't know, Pop is a tough coach to read. His rotations aren't very consistent. I mean, Keldon's a guy they want on the floor constantly in competitive games, but at the same time, yeah, we see him disappear at times. But for me tonight, on a short slate, I do think he makes some sense, especially when you're factoring in ownership. Right now, sub 20% on DK, more expensive on FanDuel, tougher to get to over there. But when you're getting him sub 10%, a guy with a pretty high ceiling, I don't mind him. Not a priority, but a good GPP play. And if this game does somehow stay competitive, I think he's going to have a good night for sure.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at it as well, like Kelly Oubre, when we start by the OF index, is really popping up, but then it was Thompson and then Keldon Johnson. So it's not like too far-fetched. Other 2 players, we kind of are deciding, it seems like, between Eric Gordon or John Collins at their price tags. It would suggest at 3% we'd want to go with Eric Gordon GPP-wise, but I do think John Collins is super safe. What are your kind of thoughts on him? I don't know if I've really asked you about John Collins this far this season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love him here, and I think he's the biggest reason Walker Kessler's been struggling so much in that front court. Really taking on a lot of usage, seems way more confident than he was in Atlanta. And the price really hasn't come up at all. 5,600 on DK, 6,200 on FanDuel. Pretty sure this was a blowout last night, and that's why he was capped. I know because I had Marcus Smart in my best lineup, and that was climbing, and then it stopped. So, yeah, I like Collins here. I thought he'd be even more popular. 29%, 17 on FanDuel. I think he's a core play for me. Like, in cash or GPPs, he's probably one of the first guys in my lineups.
Yeah, he's kind of one of those plays where until he fails me, I think I'm just going to continue to roll with him unless the price gets too high. Any last thoughts on forwards? We got a couple of questions coming in.
No, I mean, I like Franz Wagner. It seems he's pretty popular. Banchero really hasn't been hitting the ceilings that we've expected out of him, so I think Franz, for a little bit cheaper, is just as good of a play right now.
I guess just in general, let's rank the Magic players in terms of who we would play the most on tonight's slate based off of pricing. I'll start with, I think Wagner for me, and I think Suggs, and then I think Carter, then I don't know because it gets ugly.
Yeah, I'm similar. I would put Fultz before Carter, though, just because he's been more consistent. I know that we like that we're getting value at center with Carter, but I mean, the numbers just have been all over the place with him. I trust Fultz more, but I'm with you. I really like the low ownership on Suggs. So it would be Wagner, Suggs, Fultz. Then Banchero and Carter are kind of in a similar spot for me. I think they're about priced where they should be. But both fine plays.
Yeah. All right. So looking at some questions that we have, why is the industry on Jordan Clarkson? His role hasn't really changed that much from last year. Personally, that is a very good question. I think part of the reason as to that is because Colin Sexton really isn't playing that much. And also Horton Tucker. Is he with them anymore? Wait, is he?
Yeah. He's there.
Yeah, and he's not doing much for them right now either.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree that his role hasn't changed. I mean, he's kind of playing a true point guard position now, and I think that's the difference. Because last year you had Mike Conley there most of the season,
Hmm.
and when you didn't, you had Colin Sexton there most of the season. I think Colin Sexton's still there, but coming off the bench, not really running with that first unit as much. And yeah, we've seen some inconsistency out of Clarkson so far. The shots weren't really falling. A couple blowouts mixed in there, but I think statistically, if you go into the data and see what his fantasy point per minute should be with a little bit extra usage that he's
Hmm.
seeing right now, I think his price is gonna come up. It just feels like a price thing more than anything else. And I disagree in that his role hasn't changed because
Hmm.
he was playing a lot more minutes with Sexton and or Mike Conley last season.
Yeah, and honestly, like Mike Conley, if you look at how well he's been playing on like the Timberwolves, probably missing him a little bit last season, and now Jordan Clarkson stepping up.
Yeah. I mean, I think Danny Ainge wanted to tank last year, and he put together this team that ended up being a lot better than he
Right.
expected. So now they're like kind of picking things up. They went and got Collins, things like that. So I don't know. I like Clarkson, somewhat scoring dependent, but he is facilitating a little bit more, and I think that's the reason.
And then just we got some talk about Embiid. Israel saying he could go for 80 fantasy points again tonight. Yeah, I mean,
If there's a player on this slate that can do it, it's him.
yeah, but he's not playing Portland tonight. He's playing Toronto, who he did go off against as well. Yeah, he does seem to be like the pay up play. I think if we look at the model, I believe he is the top pay up play as well. So yeah, he's kind of the one that you want to be going to, but he is more difficult to get to as well. So
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, if you can find enough value that you like, it's going to take getting away from maybe like a McCollum or a chalky Ingram, something like that. And yeah, if you're not playing like total punts. But for me personally, I do want to get to Embiid. I mean, especially if he's going to be sub 20% owned. It's just a matter of how much do you like the rest of your lineup if you're doing it.
And then just real quickly, lastly about like Jordan Clarkson, and then I'll get into the last question here. For me, it's been difficult to get to him just because I want to prioritize probably Maxey, Scotty Barnes, some of those other pay-up plays, CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram. So I've personally found it difficult for me to get there because I think those other guys have a higher ceiling, but that's kind of me.
Yeah.
So yeah, the next question is: if Booker does play, does that hurt Grayson Allen's really minutes and production? I would say probably not minutes too much.
Minutes for usage,
yeah.
They like Grayson for defense, but yeah, I mean he's not going to be able to take a ton of shots if Booker and KD are on the floor with him.
Yeah, honestly, it could be one of those things where it actually helps him coming off the bench because then he's the one probably shooting a little bit more. He's no more than a GPP play, but because he had a good game last game, it's tougher to get to him.
Yeah, and I see sites mostly projecting Gordon to start alongside Booker, but it wouldn't surprise me if they had Gordon come off the bench and run that second unit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it could go either way. I don't think he's a terrible GPP play either way. He would need to get hot, maybe get a steal or two on FanDuel, but he's cheap enough. And he had an awesome game last time out. But again, that usage is not going to be there when he's on the floor with Booker.
Yeah, and just looking at his minutes from last game, it seemed partially that he was shooting the basketball well, so they kept him on the court as well. Like he had 37 minutes in that game. We have him projected to get like 27, 26 in this one. So, if he's shooting the basketball well, he could just find himself playing a little bit more. So yeah, we'll go ahead and move on into center here. We already kind of mentioned Joel Embiid, so I don't think we really need to touch on him again. So we get into the rest of the center plays. The next best one would be Pascal Siakam, Yusuf Nurkic, Wendell Carter, Zach Collins, Jalen Duren. I'm kind of just reading off the names here. Kind of who are you looking at? I guess it seems like John Collins, Zach Collins, Joakim Poeltl, or Yusuf Nurkic would be kind of the pivots off of maybe Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I really like Collins, but I'm trying to play him at power forward as much as possible if I can. I mean, Nurkic seems popular. Joval seems popular. But yeah, I mean, if no one's going to play Duren and he's in, I still like the price 6,800 on DK, 7,700 on FanDuel. So that's a pivot I'll probably make. But yeah, the more I look at it, the more I'm like, maybe I try to jam a lot of Embiid tonight and see how that goes. But yeah, I do like Collins if you consider him as a center. That being John Collins. Zach Collins is fine. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Like I think if you're looking for floor, it's probably Nurk at his price. I mean, obviously Siakam's the better play raw points, but he's
Yeah.
much more expensive. So I don't know. For me, I'm gonna try to jam some Embiid, and if I can, I'd probably land on a lot of John Collins and yeah, I don't know. I don't love center tonight, which is weird to say.
That it might be the last position I fill out with my build. I mean, on DraftKings, Duran is easy to get to. On FanDuel, he's tough to get to. Yeah, it's Embiid or bust. It almost feels like.
Right, and I'm seeing is Walker Kessler listed as a game time decision? Is that's not
Uh,
new news?
let's just double check. I'll see what the if DK has any
Yeah, see
updated
what they
news
have.
there.
I'm looking at another site, so I
Yeah,
don't know.
he's probable as of this
Probable.
afternoon.
Yeah, he's in. I was just gonna say if he, I don't like Kessler. I'm not trying to play him, but if he's out, Kelly Olynyk would look really good.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's kind of it for the centers, guys. So we'll get into a little bit of our closing thoughts. Just a reminder, if you have questions, we're happy to answer those. So typically speaking, we'd like to give a little bit of a first look build.
Yeah,
Is there anyone where you're prioritizing right away that we should be going in on?
I like Suggs, and it sounds like you're on the same page with me. So let's get Suggs in there, and then McCollum too. I think those are the two guards I'm really honing in
Yep.
on.
Yep. So I agree with that. McCollum, point guard, then Brandon Ingram probably at small forward. Just
Yeah, makes
don't have
sense.
to go too crazy with it. And then let's see what the data loved as well. So
I'm thinking Clarkson will pop, but
yeah, I don't want to get there. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, I'm with you. I think if he's a piece of chalk, we're getting away from. I will say, I think if we want Embiid, we'd probably have to get away from Ingram. I don't know if we want to do that.
We'll do two. We'll do two. One with Embiid, one with
John Collins next.
Okay.
I think we both
Power
like
forward.
him. Yeah,
that makes sense. And then center, let's just go Duran. Just cheap for now. It's kind of a fair and balanced build.
it's a good price. Yeah.
So then we have about 5.8 left over for the guard, forward, and utility spots. Let's see here.
Hawkins.
Sure, Hawkins is not bad. I don't mind that. So not terrible. Once again, you could pivot to Hayes. I don't like that, guys, but you could. And then
Maxi would
Maxi.
be safer, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Maxi, go ahead. Sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off.
No. Maxi or Scotty Barnes.
I think Maxi for me tonight. I do like both, but Maxi's really shown a lot of upside lately. Not that Barnes hasn't.
I feel like they kind of correlate, honestly. Like in that game, like if it stays close, both of them should be part of the reason as to why it's a good game. So I don't know. You could play them both together. So 4.4 left over. We could close it out with Okoji. He's 100 off. So not a terrible build here. Maybe just we might have to rebuild this.
Does Ingram have guard forward, or is he forward only? Oh yeah, you could move Ingram down.
I mean, that doesn't really change
doesn't
much.
change anything. Or McCollum, he's PG only on.
Yeah. So what we could do is just go to Scotty Barnes instead, maybe, and then utility spot 4.6 left over. Now we can fill in with some of the other plays there. Hayes, George, Okogie. Yeah. So pretty good there, guys. So we'll clear this out. And then we'll do it with Embiid, kind of reverse build it. So Embiid, and then let's just find the best values. The best values were Oubre, Clarkson, Carter, Okogie, McCollum. So what, Oubre and Clarkson just put in?
Yeah, do Oubre, Clarkson for sure. I think we could use Suggs again at 5K.
And just for us being clear, guys, that's our way of kind of getting unique. Okay, Brandon Ingram is out. All right.
Wow. Okay. Shouts out to whoever said that. I refreshed 2 minutes ago and didn't see anything. So
yeah,
that's big. I think we got to backtrack now.
Yeah.
First and foremost, CJ McCollum might be the best play on the entire slate. He should be like 80% owned now, but it's deserved. What else? Let me just pull up the Pels here. The model's not going to update this quick, but it will in a minute. But yeah, Hawkins looks amazing now. McCollum looks really good. Herb Jones has been a disappointment in similar situations, but I think tonight on this kind of limited slate, he makes some sense.
Where are you at with it? I struggle with Herbert Jones for sure. For me, it's probably just looking at CJ McCollum for sure. Like he's just a must play now. The Only way he doesn't get there is if he gets into foul trouble. And then Jordan Hawkins as well. Like, to me, those are just two must plays now. Then from there, it is a question mark. Like, is it going to be Daniels getting more run, 25 minutes in the past 2 games at a cheap price tag? He'll probably hit value for us. My question is it someone like Matt Ryan getting a little bit more work? He's much more of a 3-ball shooter. He could be someone that's decent. I hate the price tag. And then looking at it as well, like, we're not looking at Lewis or anything like that. So to me, it's probably Matt Ryan after. Actually, I might like Ryan a little bit more than Daniels. I want to see what the data says. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan's going to be scoring dependent, but I like the upside. I'm wondering if Larry Nance starts next to Joe Val.
That's not a bad idea because typically he was a power forward. Now he's just listed as center. Is he power forward eligible in FanDuel?
I think he has to be. Yeah, power forward center on FanDuel. Only 3,900 over there, too. So
yeah, that's probably. I hate using the lock word, but that's a play that's going to be tough to get to.
Yeah.
Or tough not to get to, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you want 3 Pels. I think McCollum and Hawkins are like the plays of all plays. I think Joe Val looks good now, but I don't know that he's going to see a ton more minutes. I mean, we want him to. I think the usage is going to be there. He's going to be effective when he's on the floor, but it's just tough to say. It's just, do you want to play the Herb Jones game or not? And the minutes will be there. Will the production? It hasn't been yet this season. Really not shooting the ball well or at all. I think his confidence is pretty low right now. So yeah, I'm looking at Kira Lewis. No, Matt Ryan you brought up.
Yeah,
I guess Ryan's like the GPP guy I'd be looking at.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it with Larry Nance. I think that's just the play. Like, sure, we played 2 centers. Like, oh well, like he's the second center I'd put into a build, and I like that a decent amount.
Yeah. And I will say Daniels, I mean, even with this team a little bit healthier than it is tonight, he has been floating around 20 fantasy points per night, which at 4K is fine. Don't see a huge spike in usage or minutes coming out of him with this news, but I think if you want to get a little bit more stars and Scrubsy, it seemed like an impossible way to build going into tonight. But now if you're going Larry Nance, Daniels, Hawkins, McCollum, you could probably fit Embiid with another pay up.
Yeah, I'm curious as to how that'll change Embiid's ownership, honestly, because he'll probably be the one that gets the most now.
I think so, yeah. Sub 15% on both sides. I'd be shocked if he doesn't climb into the 30s at least.
Honestly, the build that we kind of have going right now, I don't know if you can see it. I got McCollum, Clarkson, Oubre, Embiid, Hawkins, Nance. It's more of a GPP play quite clearly, but I don't mind that one.
Oh, no, I don't mind that either. Who would we go power forward? Yeah.
Probably just John Collins with the 5.6 leftover still. Definitely. And then we have 5.6 again. Sohan, Gordon, Herb Jones. I don't know.
Herb's going to have a big game at some point, and you want to be ahead of the field, but I don't know. I don't think tonight's the – I don't know, man. He's interesting. He's going to get ownership. We don't have enough for Wagner. He's someone I consider.
All right, I'm taking off. I don't like Clarkson, guys. I'll wear that. I'll wear that if he fails.
With all the value opening up, I'm more with you than I initially was.
Mm-hmm. And then I don't know if we need to get to Suggs now, but we could still. Like he's.
I still love Suggs. The ownership's going to go down now because we're getting more value guards with Dyson and Hawkins being more quality.
Nance being listed as a center ruins this because he should be a forward.
It really does. It's a pain. 6K for a forward.
Mm-hmm.
What are we looking at here?
I mean, it's fine. Like we could just.
We're close. Yeah, you're not supposed to fill the whole thing.
No.
So. I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, I am going to look at the per 36 production from last year with those two off the court, Brandon Ingram and Zion Williams, just to see what it's telling us here. So give me like 5 seconds here. I can
yeah. No, yeah, I'm gonna look into just.
All right, so I do have it up thus far this season. I'm just looking at this season. Matt Ryan has the most minutes, averaging about 27 fantasy points per 36. Then Hawkins about 28. Then McCollum, then J-Val. We know J-Val's probably not going to get 36 minutes, and then Daniels. That's this season. So I'll take a peek at last season.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan wasn't with them last season, correct?
No, that's correct.
Okay. So we won't have that data, but the player that played the most was McCollum, and then Marshall, Murphy.
Marshall was healthy. Yeah,
Yep.
he's not healthy right now.
So the next one would be Daniels in terms of who was healthy. And maybe he's probably safe. He's probably a safe price.
I think he is. I don't think you're going to get more than like 25, 30 fantasy points out of him. But I think if he hits 30, he could very well end up optimal, especially if Embiid hits the ceiling. He ends up there. So, I'm glad we're getting some value now. I like this thing a little bit more.
Right. Guys, before we started this, we're like, it's kind of a sport.
It's kind of a garbage slate.
It's fun though.
Yeah, a little more fun.
So I try to refresh the data. I'm just trying to see if we're getting any more input into it. Not yet. So give it until 5:30 probably, and then I think this is a good time to plug the Discord actually while we're on the. All right, so just a reminder, guys, we do have the Occupy Fantasy Discord. You guys can jump in there before lock. Typically speaking, it's about 30 minutes before lock, and that's what we'll try to do this time because it's not that big of a slate. So you guys get your one-on-one questions in there. It's kind of more direct, as in here are the safe plays, here are the GPP plays for each site, DraftKings and FanDuel. So jump in there. Link to that is in the description below. All right. And then if you guys have any questions as well, make sure to be putting those in the chat.
Man, yeah, things change now. And it's interesting because they got the game staggered here. They got a 7, I'm on Eastern time, 7, 8, 9, 10. But yeah, we're going to be really loading up on value in that 8 o'clock game. So I'm just trying to think. I mean, maybe there's no major news in the late games. I'm expecting Booker to play. And I think Kessler's in as well. So I don't know that you need to leave a ton of room to pivot. And I know people always ask, like, do you want something in the late game? Statistically, no, it doesn't matter. But if you're someone who watches your lineups, it's always not the funnest sweat when you start at the top of a leaderboard and watch it slowly trickle down. So other than that, I mean, if you're just playing by the numbers and the math as you probably should be, it doesn't matter if you have guys in the late games or not.
Yeah. So we did get the updates. So let's just kind of read through it.
Nice.
So right now it's showing McCollum still as chalk, but only at 49% first. Do you think that's going to be right, or is that going to still skyrocket?
I think it's going to climb even more. I think we see it slowly climb. It's not an immediate jump from like where he was to where he will be. So I think that's going to tick up a little bit.
And then just looking at it, J-Val is soaking up some ownership there, 36%, then Herbert Jones 11%, then Hawkins 35 and 52 on FanDuel because he's a little bit cheaper there. That makes sense. And now looking at the minutes, it is saying Larry Nance 25 minutes, Daniels 27, Matt Ryan 19. So okay, I would say, guys, honestly, like Matt Ryan on FanDuel would be where I'm looking at him, where he's a little bit cheaper, small forward. Tough to get to him, I guess, on DraftKings, where he's only $4K, only $300 more, but a little bit less appealing.
Yeah, and I mean, he is the riskiest of all these bells, but at the same time, he's the lowest owned. So on a limited slate, we've been looking for value. We just got some. The only piece that's going to stay really low owned is probably Ryan. I mean, Nance doesn't look too popular yet. No. I expect to see that climb a little bit. But if that stays where it's at, he's a stand I'll definitely be taking. I'll be a little bit aggressive with him. And I don't know. I wish I could say confidently that Joe Val is going to see some extra run here, but it's just really tough to gauge him on a night to night. Haven't seen him go over 30 minutes yet this season.
Well, it's not a bad thought. So, like Detroit, especially if Duran does play, I mean, I guess they have Wiseman anyways. Like they run out 3 bigs. It's Wiseman, it's Duran, and it's Bagley. So he might actually be forced into a little bit more minutes there in that game.
Yeah, and I mean, Joe Val, anytime he gets extra usage, looks really good. So, really solid play, Valanciunas is. But I think with all this value now, I can fit Embiid comfortably.
Yeah.
But Joe Val might be my second favorite center now.
I was going to say, would you rather go J-Val or Nance?
I mean, on FanDuel, I can play Nance and power forward. DK, I'd probably go Joe Val. But again, I'd keep an eye on the ownership. I'd see the ownership climbing on Joe Val now. So if it's like a third of the ownership, I'd probably go Nance. But otherwise, Joe Val definitely has the bigger ceiling, obviously.
Yeah, I just want to echo what you said about Nance. Like now he's at 15% on FanDuel, and this is just the tool updating, guys. I just refreshed it from he was 12%. If
Yeah.
that stays under 25, even 30 on FanDuel, please be overweight on him.
Yeah,
Please.
agreed. Yeah, and I mean, you could even like the thing is he's listed as a center. He is the backup at times for Joe Val. Like he's going to play minutes at the five, but it's not insane that they'll be on the court together.
Yeah.
So you can play both of them in the same lineup. And the bigger reason for that is just that we're on a slate lacking value, and Nance is a solid point per dollar play now.
Yep. Yep. And then, so someone was asking, could you play Nance and Ryan on FanDuel? I would say, yeah, that's probably what you would want to. I don't want to say you'd want to do on FanDuel. It's a GPP only type of decision there.
Yeah, and if you are doing something like that, I'd want Embiid. Like you're going to want to maximize the upside with your other positions. If you're playing two risky punts, you should be playing some payups that you feel really confident in. So maybe you get Embiid and Booker or something like that with those punts. But if you're playing a bunch of punts and then going balanced, I feel like you're kind of missing the plot in that regard. But
Yeah.
I guess it would make you unique. But for me, whenever I'm playing guys like that, like the Matt Ryans of the world, and I'm trying to definitely go with some studs in my lineup as well.
And I should make it clear, guys, like Matt Ryan is not someone you're going out of your way to play. He is someone that like you're closing out your build, you're in that price range, and you're like, yes, this is a solid close it out type of play there. So then we have another question here. John Collins or Zach Collins?
John Collins for me. I just trust the minutes more. I trust that game's going to be competitive more. I mean, the Suns were dominating the Spurs in the first half last time, and I don't mean to put too much into a one-game sample, but they kind of took their foot off the gas and got embarrassed. And I think they're going to come out here in front of the home crowd, Booker back in the lineup, and I don't know. I don't like to project blowouts, but I feel much better that the Utah game's going to be competitive than I do that the Suns-Spurs game's going to be competitive.
And I would just to kind of back end that thought there, I would say on FanDuel it's a little bit closer, but on DraftKings it is Collins just because you can play him at the power forward spot. And we just kind of we're talking about centers. It's you want to, he's tough to get to on DraftKings just because that eats up your center spot, and it doesn't seem worth it there.
Yeah, and he's 600 more than John Collins on FanDuel. So,
man, I'm actually sad. I don't know if I'll be able to get to Duren now.
Yeah. I mean. Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be even lower on now, I'd imagine.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he's a great GPP play. So, and then we did have a question. If Duren is out, are you going back to Bagley? I would say yeah.
Yeah, I would. I think they pulled his power forward eligibility on DK.
They did. Yes, they did.
So that sucks. So, yeah, DK's making it tough, man. There's no more hybrid bigs. It's all centers and centers and center. Yeah, so on FanDuel, definitely. On DK, it's a little bit more of a decision. But, again, I think point per dollar, he's going to end up one of the better plays with the red out.
Yeah. All right, so we'll give our closing thoughts here again, just kind of recapping our favorite plays here, and then we'll shoot you guys off to the Discord here. So I know we're kind of haven't really talked about it. I'll start with my favorite plays. I still really like the guards on this slate, guys. Like we get Cunningham at cheap price tag, Maxey, Scotty Barnes at cheap price tag, and also CJ McCollum. Like I still think I want to prioritize maybe 3 of those guys in my builds. At the same time, there is value now, and like Embiid is a priority now. So I might have to shift from that. We'll see how that plays out. But to me, those are my 4 favorite plays right now. And then we got Hawkins as well. Where are you looking at?
Yeah, I do really like Embiid now, and I do imagine we see the ownership climb, but it's been a slower climb than we're seeing on these pels. So if he's sub 30 on either side, I'm definitely loading up on Embiid. I do really like Maxey in lineups that don't have Embiid. I think maybe I'm not building enough to set rules and builders or anything like that, but I think one or the other, Embiid or Maxey, is a pretty good way to build.
Yeah.
And Suggs, I know you're on the same page. I think he's way too low owned for his upside, so he's just someone else I'd be considering heavily. But yeah, McCollum is a pretty much lock as far as I'm concerned. It would take a lot of lineups for me to not have CJ in my lineup.
And just lastly, looking at the ownership, obviously the Pels are all pulling the biggest ownership, but only 54 for McCollum, and then 42 for Hawkins, 41 for J-Val, and then Clarkson still pulling 40% ownership. So interesting there.
Yeah. When this stream started, we had no value. I like Clarkson. I'm with you now, though. I think he's maybe bad chalk. He's been pretty inconsistent for the price.
I'm not saying he's bad chalk or anything like that. I feel like we can find the same production now.
Yeah, I mean, if his ownership's not coming down and we're seeing all these other guys going up, like I said, Suggs is a very logical pivot. He's a little bit cheaper on both sites, and if you only need one, I think I would go to Suggs just to get different.
And just looking at the value right now, we actually have Daniels coming in as a better value play guard wise as well than Jordan Clarkson, and he's half the ownership. So, okay. So yeah, guys, that is going to be it. We're going to kick you off to the Discord, and that is going to be in the link in the description below. Just a reminder, give us both a follow on our social medias here. I'll pull up that screen. You can see
no W in my name, by the way.
Huh?
No W in Marro. You're good.
Oh gosh, I apologize. Let's get that corrected here real quick.
Yeah, you're gonna re-Italian me and get the vowel at the end.
That's. So just spell it out to them right now.
At Nick Nickmarro DFS on Twitter.
It's not letting me update. That's why I said
that's fine. Yeah, just drop the W. You guys will find me. Or if you go to the Occupy Twitter, I know they tweeted out the link. So
no, but guys, drop the W tonight for real. DFS wise.
Boom.
All right, guys, give a like and subscribe. Appreciate you guys being here.
Take care, everyone.